I will never be that way to you.
Panthers have that new edition, Chris. Panthers have that new edition.
I want to rock with you, too.
Cool it now. Cool it now.
Hey, it's my prerogative, okay? All right?
Let's get this sucker started.
Get dialed in, Panthers fans. Here comes an in-depth look at your team. Exclusive interviews. Locker room insight. Let's huddle up for Panthers Playbook. Here are your hosts, Dennis Cox and Chris Lea.
Welcome back to another episode of Panthers Playbook. That's Chris Lea, Dennis Cox here with you. Go ahead and leave your thoughts in the comment section. Day one of free agency, the legal tampering period of free agency, where you can negotiate, can't officially put pen to paper, but nonetheless, people are agreeing to deals. And Chris, we've seen a theme today. Defense, defense, defense. It all started with Jaycee Horn re-signing, or signing an extension, we should say, record contract extension, 4 years, $100 million. We've seen 3 defensive linemen get signed, safety. Mike Jackson's coming back as well. It's been a theme today. Defense, defense, defense. And I'm okay with that.
Here's my thing. Michael Jackson and Bobby Brown on the same defense.
Let's go.
That is defensive music right there. I mean, it's going to look so good. Let's go one player at a time, though. But okay, before I do that, I just want to say overall, I like the moves.
So far, I'm with it.
I'm with what they're doing. There's clearly a plan. You see kind of the way that they operated last year. There's clearly a plan. You wanted to get that offensive line better. This year, you could tell they're focusing on the defense and the defensive line specifically for that. Absolutely love it. That would not keep me from still going first 2 rounds defensive line, because, you know, I think that for the bigger guys, like some people I saw was like, hey, we should go get man, I'm having a blank right now. What's my man from the Browns that decided to stay with the Browns?
Oh, Myles Garrett.
Myles Garrett. We should go get Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett's going to really cost you, and it really costed the Browns. Or maybe we should trade for oh my God, I'm forgetting everybody's names right now from the Cowboys. Number 11.
Oh, Micah Parsons?
Micah Parsons. I've seen people say that. I don't know why I'm forgetting everybody's name, but I do have basketball in the brain right now. And that's probably why. And so I think that people are thinking in the right direction, right? We need that splash guy, but I would rather, like I said last week, get it from the draft. Just mainly because you want to get that guy that you can grow with. You can kind of get him cheap for right now, and maybe he can be a big time splash. And then we can make decisions later on who we need to pay. Right now, the Carolina Panthers need to get cap under control, especially for a team that's not very good right now. You should not have those cap problems. But do you want to go one by one with the players that they signed?
Sure, we can do that. And like you said, I think the position need is that premier edge rusher, because you're not going to find it in free agency. You're not. Like the big names like a Josh Sweat signed with the Arizona Cardinals. You try to go after Milton Williams, the big defensive tackle from the Philadelphia Eagles, former teammate of Josh Sweat. You thought you almost had to deal with them. Patriots come swooping in. Here's $104 million over 4 years. That's a lot of cash.
When you have the option to go to the Patriots or the Panthers, what are you going to pick? And I'm a Panthers fan.
I mean, but I also think as well, I think the Panthers just got simply outbid. I think that's really what it came down to. When it just came down to money. It's $26 million a year for an interior defensive lineman. But that doesn't mean that held them back today from still addressing the defensive front. Signing 2 defensive linemen along with an edge rusher, Patrick Jones from the Minnesota Vikings, on a 2-year deal. But you mentioned Bobby Brown, right? The new addition. What did this defense really need? Obviously, Derrick Brown's coming back, but they need someone that can really stop the run as a nose tackle. That's what Bobby Brown is. He's a run-stuffing 3-4 nose tackle, 6'4", 328, clogs the middle of the field. That's what he's brought in to do on rundowns, to let everyone else take care of business.
It's going to be very Brown in the middle of that Panthers defensive line, right? Derrick Brown, Bobby Brown. It's going to be just Brown. They're going to put people down in the ground with the Brown. Okay. I'm down with the Brown. That's going to be pretty cool. I hope somebody brings those signs out at Bank of America Stadium. All 42,000 will show up. But I absolutely love that signing. It's of course you need some help in the middle. Then Bobby Brown's going to be there. Treshawn Wharton, he's also a defensive tackle with the Chiefs. So we talked about this one word before, depth, right?
Yes.
We also found out the Panthers are going to bring back LeBron Ray. Thought he was one of the cool pieces that are young and all that type of stuff, right? But you don't need to. I don't want you to depend on LeBron Ray as your next backup to Derrick Brown, right?
Yeah.
You know, if he develops into that, if he develops into somebody who can start next to him, that's fine. But we've seen last year what will happen on that offensive line. Like, if you put some competition in some of these position groups, you're going to bring out the best in some of these folks, and you can end up having a deep group. Right now, Panthers offensive line is kind of deep. It's pretty deep. And so now we're doing that for the defensive line, and I assume we're going to keep A'Shawn Robinson as well.
Yeah,
to be in that mix. And again, I would still draft somebody else, but Bobby Brown and Treshawn Wharton being there is big for me. And the two things that stick out with that is they both come from winning cultures. It's not just that you're picking up guys who are good at their position. They're coming from teams where they're used to winning. They know what it's like to win big games in the big moments, and how to bring your best, how to be a professional, how to handle the pressure of when you do start winning. Now, how do you carry yourself knowing that you're going to get everybody's best shot, especially Treshawn Wharton coming from the Chiefs, playing in the Super Bowl the last 3 years. So I'm excited to see what they, bring on that defensive line, and how they help out guys like Derrick Brown, because Derrick Brown hasn't had the pleasure of playing meaningful games in the postseason, or meaningful games at the end of the year that could possibly get you into the playoffs. He hasn't had that opportunity, really. So I'm glad that he's going to be surrounded by some of those guys that can bring even his play level up.
So they're beefing up the interior of the line with those two signings, Bobby Brown and Treshawn Wharton, like you said. Patrick Jones II, who had 7 sacks this past year for the Minnesota Vikings, 2 years, $20 million contract. Again, I think a situational edge rusher. There's still a need of a premium edge rusher to go with it. But again, a depth piece, because once you get past Jadeveon, Clowney, and DJ Wonnum, there ain't a whole lot there. We saw it last year when Wonnum was out for a big chunk of the year. It was a revolving door of DJ Johnson and Echo Leota and a bunch of other guys. It was just a bunch of other guys. They'd actually need someone like, all right, a situational edge rusher that we can rely to play 25 snaps or whatever it might be a game, depending on what it is. Now, again, that's a good complementary piece to still get that premium guy as an edge rusher, which I think they should probably do at the number 8 in the draft. But again, they're fortifying the interior of that defensive line, which I think is a great thing. I think another signing that people might not look at a sexy one. Go for it.
I just want to say something really quick, and you brought it up with Patrick Jones. Just in general, you mentioned the revolving door for rushing the passer. A lot of that was just like, one, guys weren't very good, but two, injuries. The last 2 seasons, the Panthers defense has been riddled with injuries. So now that you have a guy like this who is clearly going to be like a backup, right, coming in certain situations, you don't have to go reach out and get Marquise Haynes again from retirement and bring him back in, or rely on Thomas Nkoum or whatever down the stretch. You know what I'm saying? And nothing against those guys, but now you're beefing up the defense with better players. So when injuries do happen, because they will happen, you have legit guys that you can count on. Sorry, I'll let you go ahead and cook. I just want to.
No, it's totally fine, because also one thing that Evero wants to do with this defensive front, he rotates guys constantly. Constantly in rotation. You have to be able to rely on that second unit to still be able to, for lack of a better term, at least keep the team afloat. At worst, keep the team afloat, but still be effective in some way. I actually really like the safety signing, Tre'von Moehrig. I know that was a guy that was kind of targeted by the Carolina Panthers going into free agency. A lot of people had him linked. Tre'von Moehrig, the safety coming over from the Las Vegas Raiders. And one of the reasons why I like the signing is because, I mean, outside of they struggling on everything on defense, but we mentioned in last week's episode, Chris, the Panthers' rush defense gave up 3,057 yards rushing. You know who actually ranked in the top 5 among safeties in the NFL in run stops with 22, ranked 5th, according to Pro
Tre'von
Football
Moehrig.
Focus. Tre'von Moehrig. His run defense grade, 87.5, 6th amongst all safeties in the entire NFL last year. If you can get guys, the beef that we mentioned up front, that can plug gaps, and then you have your safeties that can fly up to the line of scrimmage and make tackles, that's something that you can help in the run game as well. I like the signing that they brought with bringing him in as well. There's still probably a need for another safety to go alongside him. We'll see how the rest of this first day goes, and even into tomorrow. But I like the signing a lot. Hey, I mean, Jadeveon Holland, man, I ain't gonna hate it. I don't know how the money situation is gonna look like with all the guys that they brought in. Like, what can they afford? But as of right now, the defensive signings, again, there are good, really good signings. They still need a couple premium players to go with them. That's the thing. They still need a couple premium players. Hopefully they can get that premium guy with that 8th overall pick on the defense.
I was going to also add in, 22 run stops, 5th in the NFL, and our guy, man, I'm forgetting everybody's name today.
Everybody?
What's our guy John, who is from South Carolina, does the Panthers show, and he tweets out all of
John Ellis.
He tweets out all of the film. He put out some film of Tre'von Moehrig. There's a lot of new names we got to get used to.
I know, right?
The film looks good, man. And the thing I like about this too, all these guys are somewhat still pretty young, but they're veterans in NFL terms, but they've been in the NFL for 3, 4, 5 years at this point. And so you're getting them where right now they are in their NFL prime. They've gotten past what the average lifespan of an NFL player is. So now you know that they're solid players. And if they can continue to stay healthy, all these guys probably have at least 4 to 5 more years in them. So these are guys you can, start building around. And if you start looking at the pieces outside of Jaycee Horn, outside of Josie Jewell, outside of Mike Jackson, really there's going to be a lot of wholesale changes for the defense. And of course, Derrick Brown is almost going to be like having a new player because he only played one game anyway last year. And so this could be a completely new looking defense next year. And I don't hate it because
I don't hate it either.
If you're going to be that bad, like literally think about this. Even if those guys aren't like the big splashy guys and whatever they do in the draft, and we still have more free agency to come up. Let's say the Panthers defense ends up getting up to 20th. That's still 12 spots better.
Yeah.
As far as like yards given up,
mm-hmm.
That's still 12 spots better. That's a massive improvement right there just by itself. And so I think that these guys can help do that for the Carolina Panthers.
I mean, if you think about this, last year they gave up just over 31 points a game as a team last year. The Panthers did. If you improve by a touchdown, that's still 24 points allowed. That still puts you around like 22nd or so in the league, somewhere in that range, 20, 21, 22. That's still a massive improvement. If you could take a touchdown off the board a game, that's the goal. Take a touchdown off the board. Hopefully your offense improves based off and build off what they did last year, especially with the continuity that they have. Because you got to think, let's switch focus back down to the offensive side of things for the Panthers. They bring back Tommy Tremble. They're bringing back Austin Corbett. They're bringing back Cade Mays.
Love it.
So your entire starting offensive line is back, including the depth pieces that you have behind those guys. Still waiting to see with Brady Christensen. My assumption is that he's going to sign elsewhere. Unless I missed that he did sign somewhere else. I may have missed that, and I apologize if I did. But we have a
supercomputer in our pocket, so I can look it up right now.
That's fine. So you look that up. I'll keep talking. So you bring back your offensive line. You have your top 3 receivers are coming back. Your top 2 tight ends are coming back. Your number 1 running back is coming back. That's a lot of continuity. Now, there's still a need for a number 1 wide receiver. The wide receiver market is super thin. DK Metcalf gets traded. I know Cooper Kupp, there's the reports that if a trade doesn't happen by the new league year, that he's going to become a free agent, that the Rams are just going to simply release him and let him go. I don't know if that's your answer for a number 1 wide receiver. I think that's more a short-term thing than an actual long-term thing. But nonetheless, the wide receiver market is super thin right now. But I do love the fact that there's a lot of continuity for the offense coming back, Chris.
I love the fact, talking about a number 1 wide receiver, that the Carolina Panthers aren't reaching for guys, right? Mm-hmm. Like, there's a lot of folks that I saw who wants DK Metcalf. I would have taken DK Metcalf, right? It would have been a great addition and a great reunion with Dave Canales for him. And, I think it would have worked for the Carolina Panthers for sure. However, I wouldn't have paid what the Pittsburgh Steelers, your team, paid for him, and what they gave up for him as well. That was kind of steep. And
$30 million a year. That's a big asking price.
I'm old enough to remember when the Jacksonville Jaguars overpaid for Christian Kirk. Where did that get them?
He just got released.
Well, he's what with who did he go to today? He went to somebody.
I forget.
Today.
I missed it.
But
it's been so many moves.
It's been so many. But it's one of those things. Like, I'm so glad that they're not reaching, and I think that the number one receiver thing is not something that you need to reach for this year. I may be in the minority. Yes, the Carolina Panthers need a number one receiver.
100%.
I don't think that they absolutely have to get one this year. I might be in the minority on that one, right? Because we have other things that we need a lot more than paying for a number one receiver. Of course, maybe that's where maybe they do take somebody like Ted McMillan or somebody else with the number 8 overall pick. We'll see what happens. I still think you should use that for an edge rusher because you need that a lot more. But you can get by with the same offense that you had this year with a couple of tweaks and upgrades and have that continuity and go out there and still have a lot better year than what you did last year, right? And really improve your defense. And all of a sudden, maybe we're looking at a 9-8 or an 8-9 year. That may not sound amazing to other people. That sounds amazing to me for a team that really hasn't won a lot since 2018. So now you are kind of changing the tide and changing the way it looks. So now you don't have to overpay for somebody like DK Metcalf like the Steelers did, and they lose their left tackle at the same time.
Yeah, because again,
you already had a bad line, and now you're going to have another great receiver, but are you going to have time to throw it to that receiver? I'm sorry, get everything else together first before we get that.
There are two ways to close the scoring gap. Obviously, you can score more, but you can also give up less. Panthers gave up the most of any team in the NFL last year scoring-wise, defensively. Close the gap by improving your defense. Hopefully your offense continues to take steps. Because, again, there's a lot of young pieces. You hope Xavier Legette is healthy and improves. Jalen Coker, young, second year as well, improves. Jadeveon Sanders, same thing. Continuity with your offensive line. Bryce Young with the same offensive coordinator and head coach. Hopefully, again, that elevates building off what they did the last few games of the year. If even though you have a need for a number one receiver, if there's no person that fits that for you, again, don't reach for it. Don't reach for it. It's also going to be difficult, even if you do draft a wide receiver at number 8. They come in and be our number one guy from day one. That's a tough ask for a rookie to do.
And I'm sorry. Like, I'm not as big into, grading people in the draft and all that as other folks. That's why we had Jordan Reed on. But last I checked, there's not a lot of Justin Jeffersons or Jamar Chases in this draft. Right?
No.
So
there's not even a Malik Neighbors like we saw last year.
Even if we do grab somebody with the number 8 overall pick, which I'm highly against, by the way, if we're talking about wide receivers, like what you just said, I don't expect them to come in and immediately have an impact. You really never know. And it sometimes may take some guys some time to adjust to the NFL. Xavier Legette. And also we found out he was dealing with an injury too this year, actually multiple injuries. We knew about the wrist. We didn't know about the foot. So now we know about all of that, and we're wondering how he's going to be able to step up for year 2, how Jalen Coker is going to be able to step up for year 2. We could see massive improvement from those guys. We could see massive improvement from Tommy Tremble. I feel like if he didn't knock himself out in that one game, he probably has his best pass catching year in the NFL this year, because he was looking really good at one point, making some splash plays. So you just never know what we already have. And I think that what we already have has a possibility of taking us a little bit further, and we don't need to reach for that number one receiver when there are some bigger holes to fill elsewhere. So, we'll see what happens with the number 8 overall pick. I hope it's not on offense.
We'll see what happens. There's a lot of time between now and then. We got, I think we're about 7 weeks now, actually under 7 weeks now until the NFL draft. But we'll see what day 2 lies ahead. Chris, you and I are going to have another episode coming out tomorrow after day 2.
Are we?
Yeah, I think so, right?
Did we talk about this?
I think we did. I think we did.
Okay. There's a lot happening right now because
there's so much.
March Madness is really on my mind, and I've barely had a day off. I've been covering all kinds of basketball and driving back and forth to Greensboro a lot. And I got to go to Charlotte this week for the ACC tournament. So
I'll be there too.
Sorry for forgetting some names. I've had to say a lot of basketball names for a lot of teams lately. I'll get in my football mode, and we'll be back for day 2.
Hey, maybe we should go to Bank of America and do some content there since we're going to be in Charlotte this week.
It's possible. You spending the night down there?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess we hadn't talked about our deal. We'll talk about our plans.
We'll talk about our plans. Everyone else is in on our plans. I hope you plan on subscribing and leaving comments down below. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Make sure you are subscribed. That way you don't miss any of the content.
Don't be cruel.